then I'll wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and they will both be cuddled up on the bed between me and my wife. And I'm like, wow, where did this come from?
It's more like catulets versus meow-to-goose.
I didn't think you were going to be able to pull that one off, Kevin. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to act like I thought you could pull that off, and you did. You pulled it out of a crystal clear sky and made it happen.
I pulled it out of the sky, and you know what else I pulled out of the sky?
What's that?
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Pixel It. My name is Kevin. With me, as always, is Phil, and today we are continuing on with Alan Wake.
Yes.
A.K.A. Stephen King, the video game, the novel.
Yes. Stephen King, the book, the video game, the book. Yeah, it's...
The flamethrower. Did we made that Spaceballs joke last week, I think.
Yes, we did.
I don't think we can do that again.
We've made several Spaceballs references over the course of the 2 years we've been doing this show. And that was I think that was like 2 or 3 in one episode, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, it was. So we're gonna before we dip our toe into the crystal clear water of Cauldron Lake. Phil, can you tell me about a website on the internet that's really good?
A website on the internet? Oh, gosh, you just came out of nowhere with this one. A website? Oh, I know what I'll talk about. How about patreon.com/pixellitpod?
Oh, tell me more about that.
It's a really, really good website. Now, see, what you can do is you can go on there and you can donate your hard-earned money in one of 3 tiers to us to help us keep the lights running, to keep us paying for the bandwidth that we're using inevitably towards the future. And in exchange for this... The future is pixel lit. In exchange for all of that, you will receive early episodes, new stuff, and I know we keep talking about new stuff, but Kevin and I absolutely have this stuff in the wings coming to you.
It's coming.
Soon. And
it's coming in hot.
It's coming in hot, and it's gonna blow your mind, grapes, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you worry about that, but you should check us out. See for yourself, patreon.com/pixellitpod. Do it today.
Do it today. All right, let's put this body in the marsh.
Body in the marsh.
All right, so we left off. We're picking it up at chapter 10, and Alan has just left Barry in the cabin, and
that's probably best.
It's probably for the best, and he's gonna go. Barry. He's gonna make his way up to Lover's Peak. He wants to meet the kidnapper at Lover's Peak. So as he's walking, there's an earthquake or an earthquake-like event, and as he gets closer to the visitor center, and the visitor center is ruined, and yes. He runs inside and he finds Rusty wounded on the floor, and Rusty says that everything has come true based on this manuscript page that he's found. And Alan takes it from him, and we get a little cling, another manuscript page collected in the corner. And then Alan goes to another building. He runs across to get a first aid kit, and when he comes back, Rusty is gone, and he is now taken.
Oh, man. Not Rusty.
He is now the Taken. And
the Taken, trademark.
The Taken, trademark. So he fights Rusty with his flashlight and revolver and melts the shadows and kills him. And he's a little bit bummed about it because Rusty is the first person he truly knew that had been the Taken.
And this is kind of nice because this is the Taken. This is a theme that goes throughout the book where he's justifying things in his head with these people that he's met. It's not just faceless townspeople with axes and stuff anymore. It's actual people that he knows, and he's having a hard time with it. And I think that was a good detail to put in there.
Yeah. So he continues on the path towards Lovers Lane, Lovers Peak.
Make out point.
Make out point. He's continuing on the path to make out point. And he's avoiding bear traps, dodging around the bear traps, and he gets to a cable car. And while he's on the cable car, those crows, if you've played the game, the crows are really annoying.
They sure
The crows are swirling around him, and they're shaking the cable car, and they cause the cable car to crash on the other side. And he falls down, and he doesn't have his flashlight or his gun, and he's surrounded by Taken, and then he's saved by an unidentified man who shoots a flare off and kills all the Taken with one shot.
Oh, thank goodness for that guy, whoever he is.
Thank goodness that this random guy was also at makeout point.
Yeah. And now,
for whatever reason,
based on the rules of makeout point, he saved his life, and the two of them must,
make out.
Right?
They got a neck. They got a necking, which I never understood. Necking, it's like an older,
It's like sucking on their necks. Is that what that is?
Is that it? I don't know. People
I've
used
done
to
a
use.
little necking.
They're gone up to make out point and they're necking.
Necking.
Just rubbing necks together.
Just rubbing.
Slapping. People just slapping their necks together.
It's like the romantic version of those goats that slap their horns into each other. Except that you aim for just the good meaty part of your neck and just whomp.
It's just like you put on the music and the mood is right.
Yeah.
And the sky is full of stars, and then you just hear.
Yeah, just big meaty slaps.
Big meaty slaps.
Two sides of beef being slapped together. and then one of them just goes too hard and they clunk heads and pass out and just romantically dream in the moonlight.
Yeah, it's not a good necking session unless you get a concussion.
It's true. Did you really try if you didn't strain, sprain, or break something during your necking session? I think not.
The real goal is internal decapitation. So
that's the true ending of any. The
true ending of life is internal decapitation.
If you collect all of the collectibles and do all of the subquests before the credits roll, you too can experience internal decapitation.
Oh boy! So for those of you who don't know, internal decapitation is when you get decapitated, but the skin is still holding your head on, but nothing inside is connected anymore.
Yeah. All the important stuff.
All the important stuff is damaged, but but it looks like you're not decapitated. But in all intents and purposes, you are.
Yeah, if you want to know more about this, go to Makeout Point and do some necking. Eventually it'll come up.
Necking. Brought to you by murder.
It's already such a violent episode.
Such a violent episode. I mean, okay, let me pause here for a second. By the way, I played through, and we'll get into it and what are you playing, but I played through Alan Wake in between episode 1 and 2. Two things I learned. First of all, we were wrong. Sam Lake is not the face for Alan Wake.
Right.
It's some other dude.
I'm so disappointed because I thought that would have been pretty damn funny. But
that would have been funny, and it's also funny when we're wrong. So
that's a good point. That's a very good point. But it mostly happens during the Halo episodes. So
mostly happens during the Halo episodes.
I wasn't ready.
Number 2 is that there is a dog that Rusty is taking care of, and we talked about it, I think, in the previous chapter.
Yeah.
He's fixed his dog got wounded or whatever. In the game, it's skipped over in this chapter, but in the game, after Rusty turns, when you come back, you find the dog dead on the ground, right where you find Rusty, and game killed a good boy, and I don't really condone that.
I don't. There's just you have too much to lose with that kind of a move, and not nearly enough to gain.
Not nearly enough to gain. Yeah.
Just playing Resident Evil. Resident Evil has no problem with killing good boys. They're zombified good boys, but there are a ton of them, in fact, and they have no problem with that. And I found that shocking. I just finished Far Cry 5, and that had a bunch of good boys in it that I had to kill.
Far Cry 5 or 6?
6. I'm sorry, 6. Actually, 5 had some too, now that I think of it. But yeah, and I genuinely found it shocking. I'm like, I just got finished headshotting like 14 different, gorillas or whatever, but a dog runs at me and I shoot it. And I'm like, no!
I know. Can I give it a treat? And,
I'm on my way up the renegade path. God damn it.
Yeah. Chapter 10 ends with a segment about a girl named Ellen, and she's looking up at the sky but can't see the stars. Chapter 11. The man and Alan Wake work their way up to the top of Lover's Peak and have a bit of back and forth. And Wake puts two and two together and realizes that this man is the kidnapper and is not necking material.
Not his type. No,
not
sir.
his type. So the Taken surround them, and Wake is like, give me a gun. The guy's like, haha, no. So Wake has a flashlight while the other guy is shooting. After they clear the Taken out, the man reveals what he wants is the rest of the manuscript in exchange for Alice.
Yes.
Alan and the man get into a bit of a fight. The man then gets away and tells him that he has 2 days to get him the rest of the manuscript or Alice gets it. Alan runs down the path and hears a radio with Pat Maine on it. It's just several pages on.
It's a lot. Bless you, goodness.
I sneezed.
Yeah.
Is that loud?
No, not really. It's fine.
Okay. So Pat Maine.
Yeah.
We get Pat Maine on the radio. There's not much else there, but there's a few pages dedicated to Pat Maine talking to, is it the doctor? Was
this the one, the doctor?
I can't remember.
I gotta say, I like the radio stuff. I think it's a really interesting through line that we run into, and it adds kind of a creepy factor to it. Because honestly, I remember it sounds like a weird aside, but it's true. I used to deliver pizzas when I was in college, and this was before Spotify and all that shit. And so I'd have like 6 CDs in my car that I'd listen to. And sometimes I get sick of them, just turn on the radio. And there's something genuinely creepy about talk radio at night. Even if they're talking about the most innocuous stuff, it's weird. It's creepy. So yeah. I like this edition, but I don't keep up with it at the same time.
Sure.
If there is a more important meaning behind it, I'm not picking up on it. It's just nice atmosphere as far as I'm concerned.
And I'll get into it later, but it makes less sense in the book than it did in the game.
Okay.
Having just played the game, it's like there's more of a reason to have Pat Maine's radio show constantly pop up than there is in the book. But we'll get back around to it. So he gets a call from Barry, and the birds are angry. They want to eat Barry. So Alan runs back to the cabin, and he uses a flare to scare off a bunch of the birds, and Barry drags him into the house. And that's the end of chapter 11, and we get a segment at the end of chapter 11 about Stucky and how the darkness took him.
Yes.
Chapter 12. Alan is having trouble writing still. He's staring at a yellow legal pad, and he thinks about how he lied to the sheriff about knowing anything that happened the night before, and then he also has a brief dream about typing at Bird Leg Cabin, typing on his typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
Barry comes back inside, and he's gotten a call from Rose, who was the waitress at the diner, and she says she's found the rest of his manuscript pages. And as they drive out to her trailer, Barry talks about how the Native Americans nearby thought that Cauldron Lake was a gate to hell, which, okay.
All right.
I'm hit or miss on mostly miss. Actually, I'll just come out and say it. I miss me with applying Native Americans like, oh, the Native Americans said something spooky about this place. Man, fuck off. Like, did they? Did they really?
Did they?
Like, please stop using them as just like something to prop up a mystery or whatever, because it's kind of it's a stone's throw away from like, well, you bought a house that was built on ancient Native American burial ground, and that's why you're getting haunted. And we're like, come on.
Well, I'm not an expert or anything, but I don't think most Native American religious traditions have anything like a hell. They've got horrible spirits and stuff like that, but they don't have like a hell. That's mostly white people shit. Shit.
And there's so many different Native American spiritual traditions. I mean, just across North America, there was so many different nations, so to speak. Of Native Americans that it just doesn't feel right to be like, it was their version of hell, the Native Americans version of hell. Like, that's
somehow like, different from it's more esoteric and strange.
And if you're having trouble grokking what I'm saying, just think about like it's like 100 BC, okay? And you say the Europeans' version of hell. And like, well, okay, so you have the Romans who have one thing, and you have the Greeks who have another thing, and you have the Nords who have another thing, and you have the Germans, and you have the Picts and the Celtics, and you have all of these different groups. You have the Gauls. You have like who are you talking about? I think there was like maybe a specific tribe mentioned, but just like the phrase Native American hell, I don't know.
It stood
out to me as
it's a very tired, well-worn, cheap way of getting some esoterica into your story. You know, it's you can rest easy that most people who read what you've written are not experts in Native American culture or anything like that, and couldn't really.
So you can feel comfortable just jamming it, just assigning it to this group of people, and it's like, it's fine, you know.
That's pretty much
sort of like the, you know, they that happens a lot with the travelers in Europe. You know, if you want to do some spooky stuff, just throw it on them, and you know,
old Romani, always good for you know.
Yeah. Oh, like just shove a ghost story and make it their fault somehow.
Yeah.
And be like, well, okay.
They're not going to be around for too much longer. They'll be moving on to the next village, so they can't be mad.
Of course. Anyway, just my pause and rant right there.
Rant number 1. I'm gonna write down the time.
Phil is keeping track, keeping score. The sheriff calls. They get to the trailer park. The sheriff calls Alan and is like, "There's an Agent Nightingale here from the FBI who wants to talk to you." And Alan's like, "Yeah, I'll get right back on that." And they ask the trailer park manager, whose name's Randolph, to take them to Rose's cabin. And he fills them in on some lore about Diver's Isle, Thomas Zane, and how Barbara Jagger is basically a story that moms tell to scare their kids. At this point, it's just like evaporated into myth. And that Diver's Isle got that name because the guy who lived there liked to dive in, like, you know, scuba suits or whatever.
Yeah.
So they get to Rose's trailer. Yes. And they get to Rose's trailer and go inside. And there's a segment at the end of this chapter about the darkness that wears Barbara Jagger's skin.
Yes. Barbara Jagger. I got a kick out of it.
What cat was that? That was Jonesy.
I left the door open. Their mom's not home, and I'm leaving the door open so they can wander a little bit because it drives them crazy when there's a door closed. And I'm a naive fool. They're walking all over me, literally and metaphorically speaking. No good deed goes unpunished.
Move across the camera.
Yeah, and that was Jonesy. Bastard.
Chapter 13, Rose is being really weird. And she doesn't actually have the manuscript, and she tries to like flirt with Alan a little bit. Like, you just need a new muse.
Yeah.
And he is like, come on, we got to go. And there's drugs in the coffee. Barry collapses. Barry collapses first, and then Alan collapses as well. And he has a dream about the diver telling him he needs to switch the lights on. And then he dreams of the lady in black telling him he needs to finish what he started regarding the manuscript. Alan wakes up and flips the lights on and finds Rose rocking back and forth, and Barry is asleep. And Alan gets Barry into a wheelbarrow and runs with him up to the front gate.
He sure does.
He sure does. And then FBI agent Nightingale shows up. And we find out Randolph has called the cops.
Fucking Randolph.
Fucking Randolph. He's like, you guys, you've been in there all night with Rose, and she's a good girl. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing in there. Called the feds.
He probably did. He probably started at the top. And they were
started
like,
at the very top.
Randolph, for the last time, you can't call when you think your neighbor is getting fingered. That's not what we do.
Jesus.
It's not how we handle things.
It's not how we handle things.
That's more for the local cops.
Yeah. Nightingale shoots at Alan. Just starts firing at him. And Alan leaves Barry there and makes a getaway. Then Alan, chapter 14, Alan is being chased through the woods by the co-ops. And Alan is not a co-op.
No fucking co-op.
No fucking co-op. There's a lot of conflict in this chapter with like just the dark presence is killing off deputies and other cops and stuff like that as he is making it, doing a sneaking. It's a sneaking mission.
It's a sneaking mission
through the woods. He gets to a ranger station and eats some food and listens to the Pat Maine radio show.
Of course.
And then there's a segment at the end of chapter 14 about a guy named Bill and how his wife has disappeared, but he doesn't really care.
He's kind of all right with it.
Chapter 15. So Alan is going to meet the kidnapper now at the mining facility. And he gets there early and he goes inside with a gun, right? And he's ready to go, you know?
Yeah.
And he stops and he learns a little bit about Bright Falls Mining Company and how it founded the town. And that's neat.
It is neat. We get a little history lesson.
When he gets inside, he hears Alice's voice, but it sounds wrong. So Alan follows Alice's voice into the tunnels, into the mining shaft, and continues running when he gets jumped by a group of Taken. He fights them off, and then the kidnapper calls to tell him to meet him at Mirror Peak at midnight. This fucking kidnapper is like, you're here. Let's change it again.
He's very ballsy, isn't he?
Yeah. So that night, Alan is running towards Mirror Peak when he hears the kidnapper struggling with someone. Turns out it's the darkness attacking the kidnapper, and the kidnapper is saying to the darkness, we don't have Alice. We were just, fucking around. Sorry, my boss doesn't know who he was messing with. And the kidnapper has a boss. Ooh. Oh. So Wake is over there, and he gets pulled into the darkness storm. And he sees a boat down below in Cauldron Lake approaching him. And while he's in the air, pulled up by the storm, he cracks his last flare, and the darkness kind of like scatters away from him, and he falls into the lake. And the last thing he remembers is someone pulling him up. And at the end of chapter 15, there's a segment at the about the Anderson brothers farm.
Yes. One of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too. It's probably the most interesting. There's a moment in that sequence that's just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Chapter 16, Alan wakes up in Dr. Hartman's care. He tells Alan that he woke up from having an episode and that Alice has been dead for a while now, and that he is under his care. Alan isn't sure what to make of it, but doesn't quite believe Hartman. And Hartman tours Alan through the facility where he's going to get better and all that stuff. And Hartman stops though, and he's like, there's a storm brewing. That wasn't on the forecast.
I didn't know that was going to happen.
He seems a little off-put about that. And then they go by and they meet one patient who is a game designer, and Hartman has some nasty things to say about game designers. I
got a kick out of that in the game. I got a kick out of it in the book. It's good.
And then Hartman, they talk to the Anderson brothers, who are Tor and Odin Anderson. And Tor is playing with a toy hammer.
Of course. Do you get the metaphor, guys?
You get it?
You get it?
He's Thor. And then Hartman leaves Alan and the Anderson because he needs to deal with some power issues that they're having. And the Andersons pull him aside. We're like, hey, your head's all messed up. You got to get to our farm, and we left a message there for you. And all that. And you got to drink our moonshine. It'll feel like moonbeams on your brain.
Right. they do a lot of that talk, that kind of
stuff.
Yeah.
They also talk about Baba Yaga or Barbara Jagger used them.
Got a kick out of that. I got a kick out of that.
And now she's using Alan too. So the Anderson brothers, as certifiable as they might seem, are just like they're the previous Alan, basically.
Yeah. A couple of other creatives that used to be on top of the world and then lost it.
Lost everything. There's another lightning strike, and the power is totally out. At this point, Tor uses his toy hammer, which has somehow become a real hammer, to bludgeon the nurse and let Alan get away. He just cracks a nurse across the skull.
And it's like, I mean, we talked about like when the shadow takes out, you're not that person anymore. You're a taken, but with these, it's like, oh, you just killed. Okay.
Oh, that she wasn't a taken. That was just a nurse.
That was just a nurse you killed. All right. Wow.
And he says something about behold the mighty Mjolnir or something like that.
Just murders a bitch in cold blood.
So Alan, this lets Alan get away into the staff area, and he opens a door, and we get a cliffhanger with him opening the door. We get a little bit at the end about how Zane and how, despite writing himself out of existence, he kept things in a shoebox that would remain. Chapter 17. In that room, behind that door, is Barry. He's in the room, and he was there to find Alan and Hartman, sick some goons on him and locked him up. And they go into Hartman's office and find some tapes. One of Alice and one of Nightingale, and then he notices a picture of Hartman and the kidnapper standing together. And Alan's like, wait a minute, this is all a trick. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I figured that Barry being there would have tipped you off.
Yeah, you didn't. Oh, okay.
He's like, Alan, you've been gone for 5 hours.
This is, you should have picked up on this a lot sooner. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Alan. Hartman arrives and Alan points the gun at him, telling him to cut the shit. And Hartman was like, "Oh, I wanted to just use you, your skills and my expertise. We could have done something great." They leave Hartman in the room and lock the door behind them when the room starts getting dark. And behind the door, they hear the darkness killing Hartman. So basically, to catch people up is like Hartman was aware of the darkness. He was like aware of this thing, and he was like, "Oh, I can use the creatives that it has infected or whatever, or touched to get what I want." Barry and Wake try to make their way out, and they see Birch, the nurse, get caught in some goo, and blood starts leaking from his ears. They see another television set, or Alan sees a television set with himself typing on it, revealing that something has had him trapped in the cabin and making him write. They continue, but eventually get separated when a barrier of furniture forms. Alan tells Barry that he'll find another way around. Alan steps in some goo, and voices tell him to doubt himself, but then he gets free and gets outside. On the other side of a security gate, Barry has his car, but Alan needs to go through the hedge maze. So Alan's in the hedge maze. He's running around, and Birch is stalking him with some hedge trimmers. Wake kills him, melts his face off with the light, kills him, and follows the sounds of Barry's horn beeping for him in the parking lot. And they get in the car and drive away. And at the end of this chapter, there's a segment about Thomas Zane falling in love with Barbara Jagger. Then we get chapter 18. And on the car ride, Alan listens to the tape of Alice, and he realizes that this was how they fooled him before, by basically cutting up an old recording of Alice talking to Dr. Hartman.
They Home Alone 2'd him.
They Home Alone 2'd him, yeah. I'm going to give you to the count of 10.
Yeah.
Alice, what do you mean?
What do you mean, Alice?
To get you no good, rotten,
yellow,
dirty yellow carcass off my door. But Alice, 1, 2, 10.
Can't be Alice. Alice hates guns. What's going on?
Alice doesn't know how to use a Thompson. Alan recounts what happened. The darkness gave him the key to Birdleg Cabin instead of Stucky giving him the right cabin. Hartman and Mott never had Alice. The darkness is using Barbara Jagger's skin. She was Thomas Zane's muse. And Alan realizes everything typed in the pages is coming true, and that he might have the power to bring Alice back. Hartman was using those affected by the dark presence, but didn't realize how strong it was. And Alan tells Barry that they need to get to the Andersons' farm because that's where the message was left for them. Mm-hmm. Alan listens more to the tape and mopes about what a terrible husband he's been. But then a big pile of boulders rolls onto the road, and Barry swerves off the road. They end up rolling down the hill. Alan jumps out of the car, but Barry stays in it, and the car just settles at the bottom of a ravine. And the chapter ends with Alan calling out, "Barry!"
Yeah, crying out for Barry.
And chapter 18 has a segment at the end about a good boy. So I take it all back. It has a segment at the end about a good boy getting his skull split open.
That's
by
right.
An axe. So I take it all back. Fuck you, Rick Burroughs.
Come on. Come on. As my wife would say.
Come on.
Come on.
So they removed one entire scene in this section from the game. Mm-hmm. And that is after Alan runs from the cops, he goes to he goes to the recording studio.
Yeah, that's right.
And he talks to Pat Maine, and Nightingale shoots shoots into the radio station,
right.
and nearly kills Pat Maine. And then there's a moment the next day, if you listen to the radio, where you hear, seems like some folks are out there looking for somebody. So if you have any tips on that, give them a call. But if he apologizes to Alan for inadvertently tipping the people off as to where he is. Which I thought was a nice touch. It was oh, okay. And that was a nice little moment in the game where, and I could see why you would cut it for plot purposes, but I feel like you almost should just cut everything Pat Maine related out of the book then, if you're not going to have
just a weird
that moment.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I because that was another moment in the game I enjoyed. I thought that the advantage and disadvantage to this kind of storyline is that you're so isolated for so long. And then, so when you meet up with people, whether it's in the psychiatrist's office or at the Anderson farm or at the radio station, that sort of thing, it's not a safe room, far from it, but it does give you this kind of breath of fresh air that really keeps the charge running. And so I think missing out on another opportunity for that. I don't know. Maybe they pushed it further back. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, that's the end of our reading for today. So how are you feeling? How are you feeling about it?
I feel good. It's fine. Everything is competent, and it's held up. It's held up nicely. It's not. They're not taking a lot of chances in terms of altering, as you very well know, because you just finished the game.
Right.
So I think I want to see more of Nightingale, because based on the way that we're hearing about Nightingale and seeing Nightingale, do you know what I think of? Have you ever seen The Frighteners?
Yes.
You know the character that Jeffrey Combs plays in The Frighteners?
Yeah.
That really weird Hitler haircut FBI quote unquote agent. Yeah. And he's just strange and like uncomfortable all the time. And God, that is an unsung hero of character acting, by the way. Jeffrey Combs can do no wrong.
He can do no. I love him as a character actor.
He's brilliant. He's absolutely. But he should have
been in Oppenheimer too. Like,
oh my God, of course he should have been. Absolutely.
Jeffrey Combs looks like a guy who should have been in that movie, you know?
Oh, absolutely. He's great. He's just great. But yeah, I kept picturing that character in my head every time Nightingale, because the way they write Nightingale is this strange, wobbly, kind of odd sort of character, not what you expect from a Fed. It's very strange. So I'm enjoying that, and I would like to see more of that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So far, they're doing good. They're doing good so far.
Yeah. So far, it's fine.
Yeah. Perfectly adequate.
Perfectly adequate. I'm not hating it. Not necessarily loving it. It's just, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So with that all being said, Phil, what are you playing?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I just finished Aliens Dark Descent. Pumped about 20 hours into it. And I intend on playing it through again because it does scratch that XCOM-y kind of itch with a franchise that I enjoy more. I also am so deeply frustrated with it because this is probably the best designed game for Aliens that I've seen in a while. Like, this should have been the game. It should have been the Aliens equivalent to what Alien Isolation did for Alien. If you said the best video game to represent Alien, you hold up Alien Isolation. This is what Alien's all about.
Sure.
And you should have been able to hold up Aliens Dark Descent as this is what represents Aliens. But it's so beautifully designed. The ideas are there. The storyline's really good. It's a really haunting, interesting storyline. And the follow-through, the execution of this falls on its face so frequently. Like game-breaking bugs, all kinds of random shit. Like, I've had to load from previous saves so many times.
Right.
And it's frustrating because it needed a little more time in the oven, is what is clear and obvious.
Sure.
And it's very frustrating because if they had held off, let's say 6 months, to really spit shine this bad boy, this is Game of the Year material. No hesitation in my mind. This should be my Game of the Year. This should be it, because it feels like it's tailor-made for me. It's got that strategy quality. It's the right franchise. It's got this great, stressful atmosphere. It's the first real-time strategy game I've ever played that scares me. Like, it does keep you tense and on edge. It encourages a careful, methodical playthrough. It's wonderful for so many reasons, and it breaks my heart at how broken it is. I hope that this time next year it is. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it is. And I hope that this time next year it's patched to fucking back, because what's so frustrating to me is I was so tense with all of the shit that was going wrong, but I was still going, I want more. Are we going to get some DLC? Are we going to get a sequel? I would play it. I just don't think we are. I don't think we are. If this is how they're putting it out there, they're not going to. I don't know how it did in sales, but it's broken as shit, and it's just a testament to how incredible their intentions with this game were. That I played it through to the end and intend on playing it again. Sincerely, it's weird to be that flustered over something that you enjoyed that much, but that's why. It's because you see.
I get it. I mean,
that wasted potential.
Yeah.
So that was the better half of the last week, and but speaking of wasted potential, I did finally break down and buy Blood Bowl 3.
I know the Blood Bowl series is one that you're particularly fond of. So.
I love it. I think it. I'm a a lot of we've talked about this in the past where. The friends we have online and our fans and everything like that, I think a lot of them would be surprised at how involved in sports you and I are. You more so than me, but I'm still a big football fan and stuff like that. And I love Blood Bowl because it's so clearly the English making fun of American football, with the Warhammer world, and I love it. And I play Chaos, which is like basically meaning I don't even care if I win. I just want to kill some of your guys.
Sure.
I want to ruin your team. And it's mean-spirited and fun, and I really enjoy it. And it's one of the only competitive games, that I really enjoy. I'm a pretty passive guy. I don't really care for multiplayer games. They're not really, unless it's like a co-op multiplayer thing. I enjoy that. But I'm not really all that competitive, but there's something about Blood Bowl that brings out the competitive spirit in me, and I really enjoy that. And when this was released, it on Steam had mostly negative reviews. And
I remember looking at it, and I was like, ooh.
And people were complaining about, there was just a lot of stuff you had to pay for after you bought the initial thing, and just that kind of cash grab bullshit. Right. And recently, they were messing with it. They changed some things, and recently, God help them, the reviews are now at mixed.
That's a big step up.
Bully for them. And so I went, honestly, that is good enough for me. And I'm enjoying it in the same way that I've enjoyed every Bloodborne game. It's frustrating. It's fun. It's Blood Bowl. Bloodborne. Blood Bowl. It's Blood Bowl. I enjoy it. And it's unfair in all the right ways and fun in all the right ways. But I see why people are frustrated. It's got the same kind of they're doing seasons, and it's got the same
season pass and all that stuff.
Kind of. It's more or less the way that the way that Marvel Snap does it. You pay to get on the board so that you hit a certain level and you earn these little rewards, and they're aesthetic things mostly. It's not pay to win necessarily, but the funnest part about Blood Bowl has always been customizing your team and making them, interesting and different. And that's why I like playing Chaos, because I like mutating them and giving them all horrible, horrible claws and tentacles and shit like that. It's fun, but there is a serious amount of in-game micro transactions and shit like that. And if this was a free-to-play game, then that would be one thing. I would happily give them money for all kinds of good shit. But it was a $30 game to begin with, and that's cheating, in my opinion. So
that's not good.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep playing it because I don't know what's good for me, and I like Blood Bowl, so I'm gonna keep playing it. But I feel like there was a lot here that again they squandered that could have helped them survive longer. I went to play a match today, and it took forever to find an opponent on a Saturday afternoon, and I don't know, man. I'm not sure how much longer this thing's going to be around if that's how it goes. So,
right.
Yeah. So a little disappointing, but hey, it's Blood Bowl. I'm enjoying
Blood Bowl,
myself.
baby.
Yeah.
Forget it, Jake. It's Blood Bowl town.
It's Blood Bowl. What about you, Kev? What are you playing?
All right. So in between when we've recorded the last episode and this one, oh boy, has there been a lot. All right. So first and foremost, Alan Wake. I was like, you know what? I'm actually gonna beat it this time. So I played through the entirety of Alan Wake, and just so I could get a feel for how the game and the book compare. And honestly, there isn't a ton of difference between the game and the book.
Yeah, it's true.
It's basically the book just has cut out the action sequences for the most part, or slimmed them down considerably. So yeah, that's been like that was the main thing, and it's an interesting game. It's fun. It's a little one note though, because it's like every sequence is shine a flashlight and then shoot, and shine a flashlight and shoot, and then maybe do a cinematic dodge or whatever.
Right.
And I thought for like a game company that is very well known for their gunplay in games, like you got Max Payne and you got Control. Alan Wake kind of sits in the middle of like, no, it's fine. It's not the most interesting. It seems like a game that would have been cooler if it was more of a mystery. More of a mystery game rather than, but it suffers from the era that it was released in, those Xbox 360 era, everything was a third person shooter. you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's true. It's very much a game of its time.
In the late aughts or whatever, everything was that. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with it. What else have I been playing? Okay, so I beat 2 games that will be going on my Game of the Year list, probably. They're relatively short horror games. So the first one, Killer Frequency.
Ooh, I own this. I want to hear all about it. I've been looking forward to this one.
Okay, so Killer Frequency, it's based on a Game Jam game that a few employees from Team 17 made about 3 or 4 years ago. And a lot of the employees that originally made that Game Jam game have moved on from Team 17. But Team 17 took the idea and really expanded it out. So you play as a DJ who used to be this hot shit DJ named Forrest Nash. It's set in the 1980. It's 1980 something. You don't really. Actually, no. There is a specific year. I think it's 1987. So you play as this guy, Forrest Nash, who was a hot shit DJ in Chicago. He had a radio show that had millions of listeners. Something happened in an interview, and it might have come up what exactly happened in some of the stuff you can find in the game. I didn't find it. Something happened, and he lost his job. Now he's working in a podunk town named Gallows Creek.
Good name.
Good name.
Good name.
And one night, he's been there for a week. One night, he gets a call, and this is all the first, this is just the first 20 or 30 minutes of gameplay, just up to the inciting incident, basically. He gets a call from Leslie, who is the 911 operator for the town, and is like, something bad's happened. I won't tell you, I won't spoil it, but I need you to take over. I'm going to run dispatch over to you, to the radio station. You need to handle the calls tonight because you're the only other person in town who could reasonably talk to people, handle people on the phone like that. So wild. I'm patching it through to the radio station. And there's a serial killer on the loose in the town, and you're getting calls from people all night that are being stalked by this serial killer, and you have to talk them through surviving. And The wild thing is, like, you are not seeing anything. You are in your DJ booth, and you have to talk to them, make the right, like, dialogue tree choices, ask them the right questions, go run around the studio into, like, somebody else's office and find a thing on their desk that might, like, shit, this person is having this problem. This other radio host just talked about something like that. Go run to their desk, like, pick something up, run back, and, like, okay, so if you do this, you might be able to survive. It is such a neat concept for a game.
That is really cool.
And I had so much fun with it. So Killer Frequency, you already own it, so you might as well go ahead and install it and play it next. It really only takes like 4 or 5 hours to get through. Nice. So it's a tight game. Yeah, my playtime was 6 hours total. So yeah, I think it takes about 6 hours to get through to the end. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Highly recommend it.
Nice.
So that's Killer Frequency. The other one I played was Homebody, which is published by the Game Grumps, made by the Game Grumps. Jory, who I think is their lead game dev in their little game studio. Jory, and it was co-written by Leighton Gray, I want to say her name is. She works for the Game Grumps as well. Okay. So Homebody is a game best played without knowing a ton about what is going to happen in Homebody. Okay. But what I will say is that it is a throwback to, it's like Alone in the Dark and Clock Tower vibes.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
It has the pre-rendered camera angle stuff that, like, Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil have. The locked off cameras. And it's that. It's kind of a point and click. It's a mystery. It's a horror. And it's got some, like, Outer Wilds clue stuff happening with it. And that's like the extent of what I want to say about it. In terms of thematically, because there's, like, it's one of those things where it's such a tight little experience, 4 to 5 hours tops. It's such a tight experience that the more you say, the more it's, like, lessened, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally get that.
But I will say, thematically, it's about anxiety and depression. Specifically about the anxiety and a little bit about the agoraphobia of the main character that you play, Emily. And she's it's really interesting as the game progresses, finding out more and more. And I'll there's, like, one little thing, just a morsel. There's, like, there will be a moment where you're talking to somebody and they'll ask you something, and you could you have these options of dialogue to say back to them, and then you click on it, but instead of Emily saying that, she deflects. So instead of being like, the option that you want to pick is like the truth or a more direct option, but instead of actually saying it, the character who suffers from a severe anxiety deflects from actually saying that.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Okay.
And it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, you tell her to do that, and then it's like, she's like, nope, I'm fine.
Okay. All right.
Not wanting to rock the boat.
That's really interesting. Okay, cool. Cool.
So I definitely recommend checking out Homebody. It's wild how few people have actually played it. Even with its association with Game Grumps, it's not like it's not like Dream Daddy, because Dream Daddy was like, colorful and uplifting, gay dad dating simulator, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
It's bright and cheery and all that, and just like caught on like wildfire. Homebody is this very dark, old school looking game that is tough to actually describe to people. So I understand that why it hasn't caught on, but it would be. I want to see more people play it.
It makes sense though. I mean, that's why it's good that we have. That's why some of my favorite games, year in and year out, are indie developed games. As big of a name as the Game Grumps are, they're not EA. So they're not making AAA games here. And that's where people are taking real chances and trying new things. And you just sold the game as far as I'm concerned. That is really, really intriguing. So I'm in. I'm totally in.
Sure. No, I'm glad. I'm glad you're in. And I hope some other people are in also.
Hell yeah.
Next on my list of like little indie games to play, indie horror adjacent games to play, is Bramble, because you talked about Bramble a whole lot.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I have a pretty solid top 10.
You do. You sent me it. I was like, oh damn, yeah, you're set.
I have it's a top 9 so far.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the list, it's amazing. The bottom of my top 9 for games of the year is Bolt Gun.
Right. And that was a pretty solid damn game.
It was a solid damn game. Right now, it's the one that will get pushed off the list, because right now, I might as well give you my mid-year update on my games of the year.
Yeah, why not? I'll do the same thing.
And this is in no particular order. My games of the year so far are Amnesia: The Bunker, Dead Space Remake, Dredge, Homebody, Killer Frequency, Pizza Tower, Resident Evil 4 Remake, the System Shock Remake, and Bolt Gun.
Okay. I got 7 right now. I've got my little Steam list with my Game of the Year list right now, the short list. Aliens: Dark Descent, Amnesia: The Bunker, Bramble: The Mountain King, Dredge, Hi-Fi Rush, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and Bolt Gun.
Yeah.
We're going to have a very similar list this year.
Probably like Bolt Gun and Bolt Gun for both of us, and Alien: Dark Descent for you. Those are probably the games that over the course of the year and more things come out might fall off.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because honestly, like I have high expectations for Bramble: The Mountain King. In all likelihood, by the end of the year, I'll feel comfortable saying Street Fighter 6 is on my Game of the Year list.
That's another one I gotta try. That looks super fun.
So we'll see. We got 5-ish months left.
And there's a lot of stuff. Like, frankly, the remasters of the Metal Gear Solid games, I have to play those because that's one of my biggest blind spots in gaming.
Sure.
I've never let's see what else is coming out this year. There's the Space Marine 2, Blasphemous 2, Armored Core 6, War Hospital, which I keep bringing up and I really want to play. That looks really good. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Lamplighters League, RoboCop Rogue City, City Skylines 2.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's
there's RoboCop Rogue City I'm really curious about. I need to play Trepang 2, which looks pretty cool. And also I have some other games that I might throw in there just for fun. But like I have Save Room, The Merchant is on my list. Did you ever play this? Did you ever play
Save Room? I love Save Room. I didn't know they had
There's a sequel.
God damn
and for those of you who don't know, I think we talked about it whenever we played it on the podcast.
Yeah, we talked about this game.
Save Room is literally just a game where you reorganize Resident Evil style inventory to make everything fit. And Save Room the Merchant is the new version of it that is it introduces like a merchant character, and it's only $2.50, I think.
Well, that's going on the wish list because I loved Save Room. That was a great way to waste a few hours. That was super fun.
I mean, it was so satisfying.
It was satisfying. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
love it.
All right, well, that'll do it for today's episode. If you get a chance, please go ahead and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Do we have a Threads yet?
Not yet. Probably. We're probably going to get one because we need to kick
It'll
Twitter
be at PixelitPod on Threads if it's based on your Instagram username. So eventually we're going to be on Threads at PixelitPod because social media is a hellscape owned by billionaires.
It's true. And somehow in this twisted world, Elon Musk made fucking Zuckerberg look palatable by comparison.
I don't know how. How he does it.
It's unreal. It's a gift. It's
a real gift.
It's amazing.
Mark Zuckerberg, who had a movie made about him, about how much of a dip he is.
Yeah. An insufferable
is more palatable than Elon Musk.
Yeah. It's a fascinating world we live in, Kev.
At PixelitPod on Twitter and Instagram. And eventually Threads. PixelitPod on Patreon. By the way, we have the new Patreon update, which allows you to become a free member of our Patreon. So I recommend go over. You don't have the cash? That's fine. Go over, become a free member of the Patreon podcast.
Yeah, join the community.
You'll get updated. You'll be updated when new episodes drop. Early episodes drop. So that's perfect there. We're off to go record a bonus episode.
A bonus episode.
I don't know. Become a patron to find out more about boner episodes.
Come on.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.